Good morning and welcome to this month's edition of Designed for Organization. My name is Tia Hunsperger and I am a senior designer at Closet Factory, Colorado. I'm going to be joined by Keli Jakel with Organized by Keli. She's going to be coming on here in a minute. And this month we're going to talk about moving. I know moving can be such a challenging task for so many people that Keli and her group organize that they specialize in. And so I wanted to bring her on and talk about how we move. Hi Keli, how are you?
Hey Tia, I'm great. I'm so happy to see you. It's been a while.
I know. I'm happy to see you too. And it's here in Colorado. It's a cold, snowy day. I look over that way because that's where my window is. It's in my office, and it's a cold, snowy day. And I'm bundled up in my office. I'm assuming you're the same.
I am. I've got my slippers on and everything. So,
I've got some wool socks on. So
oh hey,
yeah,
yeah, that works. That
yeah.
works.
Well, our subject this month is moving, Keli. I know that's one of the things that your team specializes in helping people move, whether that's, we'll talk about all the different types of moves that you can help people with. But right off the top, like what do you think the most important, like if you could give somebody one tip when planning a move, what would be that one most important tip? Kelly, did I lose you? Oh, no, you're there. Okay.
Yeah, I think it lagged out. I'm not sure what it's doing. Sorry about that. One
No
important
worries.
tip, I think, just to stay calm. Like transitions are tough no matter what, and just knowing it is a transition. And so stay calm and know that, whatever comes your way, you can get through it. It'll be okay. But no matter how much you plan for logistics and do everything else when it comes to moving is one of the most stressful events of anyone's life. We can
Right.
help make it less stressful. That's our game, is to take moving and make it as stress-free as possible. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of change and a lot of transition, and that's going to be hard no matter what. So the more you can outsource and plan ahead and find people to help you through the pieces that can be helped, the easier it is to, I think, stay calm for
Yeah.
a move and just get through that piece so you can move on with your life.
My moving tip is to put toilet paper in your purse, because I don't know how many times I've gotten to the new place and I'm like, where's the toilet paper? I can't find it. So that's my tip, is put it in your handbag so you have it, you know exactly where it is, because that's like the one thing you have to have when you get there, right?
That's a great tip. We have like a bin of supplies that we use just for unpacks. We have peanut M&Ms and all the Advil and all those things. But the one thing that has to consistently be restocked is the toilet paper,
Yes.
because you come into that new place and you've got a team and you need the toilet paper. It's important. So I
Yeah,
love that tip.
gotta.
It's super important.
Yes, for sure, for sure. So moving can come in all different kinds of packages. It can be moving to a bigger house because there's new kiddos in the house and we need more space. It can be downsizing because, where kids have moved on. It can be moving across the country for a new job. It can even be moving into, I have some clients right now that have moved into a portion of their home while a remodel is happening in a portion of their home, and then eventually they'll be moving back in. I know you help with helping people kind of in all of those scenarios. Do you have a favorite type of move that you get to help people with, Keli?
Oh, that's really tough. I would say probably the most fun is when you're helping someone after a remodel,
Okay.
because there's less stress involved. Like they're not changing their address and finding a new grocery store and those stress pieces.
Right.
But it's still a lot of unpacking because maybe they were living in an apartment or another section of their home while it was remodeled, all those different pieces. And a lot of times people will remodel and then they think, oh, great, the remodel's done. Just put everything back. But it doesn't go where it was before. Nothing fits the same. And so we love to come in and unpack, get everything put away so that they feel that value, that benefit after their investment. Like, you know, you put in a new closet or you remodel your kitchen and you have in mind this beautiful magazine perfect space.
Right.
And then, you know, it happens all the time. And then people like have all these boxes and they're not sure where everything should go. And it's hard to pull off that full look and make it. So that's really fun because, you know, we can just come in and do that piece of it and help somebody step back into their life and kind of go quickly.
For sure. For sure.
So
Keli, when the first part of moving obviously is getting packed, and I have done I won't say cross country, we moved halfway across the country from Washington to Colorado, but it was a home that we had lived in for 11 years. It was hard to decide what went in a box, what went to Goodwill, what was given to a friend, what got thrown away. What are your, I would have, knowing you, I'm sure you have like a checklist of what do I keep? What goes? What doesn't go? I actually had this conversation with a client yesterday who's been in her house about 1.5 years, and I helped her with a project when she first moved in, and now she's ready to add some other things. And you know, the closet was her first priority when I moved in, and now we're going to update her laundry room for her. But she said now she's getting to a point where she's opening some boxes that kind of just got stashed away. They weren't priorities. And she's looking at boxes like, why did I move this? So what are your tips when it's time to get packed up on what we keep, what we don't keep, and all that?
Sure. So it's mindset. It all goes back to mindset and just being really clear about when you are moving, like what is your vision for the life you're going to have where you're going? Because it can get so easy to pack things for just in case or for someone else or for, well, it's sentimental. I probably shouldn't let it go because my aunt gave it to me. Like all of that gets kind of tangled up. And the really fun thing about making a lot of these decisions when you're getting ready to move is that, like the process we use, you go in, you pull everything out, sort it, categorize it. Well, something happens in the brain in that process so that the decisions are easier to make when things aren't in their normal home. And so walking through a client when it is all sorted and categorized to say, hey, let's talk about what is your life going to look like on the other side in Washington or across town or whatever it might be. Let's get really present about that and shop for the items that you want to bring into that new current space. Then we can make decisions on all the rest. But let's not get tangled in the decisions of what happens to everything else. First, let's just get this clarity. So what I think has happened for your friend is she moved and she shopped when she got to her new place for what she needed right now for her life. Those boxes that get shoved to the side, they're probably not items that are so necessary for that current life.
Right.
And so her brain is seeing them in a different way, opening them up because now she has that they're in a new place and a new time, like time has passed.
Right.
Then she sees them and she's like, what was I even, like, I don't even want or need these things. But those decisions are really hard to make if you just open your closet and say, what do I want to let go of out of my closet?
Right.
Because you just don't know what you're getting into. So, yeah, I think in that decision-making piece, like you said, do we have a list of everything that stays and goes? Yes and no. Like, there are the basics. There are the main things that, your pillow. Like, we don't even need to talk about your pillow. You're keeping it. But there's other things that there's not one list that's going to fit everyone
Right.
because life changes. And with all these transitions, what you need in your present space changes. So,
And I think sometimes we know we can figure some of that out ahead of time. Sometimes I think it's hard. Like, my wardrobe changed a bit moving to a place that has different weather. But I didn't really know what that looked like, you know,
right,
till I got there and experienced it. So
right.
we've been in Colorado almost 10, like in a couple months we'll have been here 10 years. So we've been
Oh,
here
wow.
now, got my wardrobe figured out what I need for this crazy Colorado weather. But when I came, I didn't know, you know, what I need.
Yeah. And how would you know? And in those cases, you just have to bring it and figure it out. Um, in downsizing, when we're helping, it's often women, we help women and men, but often women, we're helping them prepare to downsize, maybe move to assisted living. Well, if they've already picked out the place, they know where they're going, it gets so much easier to make those decisions. But sometimes they call before the decision has been made. And when you don't know where you're headed,
Right.
making those decisions gets really overwhelming really quickly. So, fortunately, we've seen enough of the assisted living, we've seen enough of these locations to know, oh, this is probably going to be something you do or do not want, and
Right.
make some of those recommendations. But it's still harder. So, anytime you know where you're headed, you can get more present. You can make those decisions a little better. But without it, it gets tough.
Yeah, and I think for us, when we did a cross country move, we had a temporary living space when we moved, but we didn't know where we would be more long term. And so we made some best judgments, even on things like furniture, right? Like what
Right?
fits, what doesn't. It's one of the beauties of what I do, and you and I just worked together on with some clients that built a beautiful new home, but then they got into the home and they're like, okay, we need some different space. We
Right.
need things to work differently. And so we got to work together on those clients. That was a fun project. But that's one thing that I love doing is helping people make a space work. I've got some other clients I'm working with right now who are moving from Chicago to Colorado, and they are, the closet's a little smaller, the office is a little bigger, it's give and take. And so it's figuring out how to make the new space work as well, maybe differently, but as well as the old space worked for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so exciting, like for you, when someone knows where they're going and they can see it in advance. So you can get the process going
Yes.
to create these structures, helps stay calm. It helps keep the transition a little easier than when you don't know where you're headed.
For sure. And I'm sure your team does this as well, Kelly, but oftentimes people have lived in one environment, they've experienced one scenario, and that's all we think of and all we can see. And so I love helping people and saying, well, have you thought about this solution, right? And just coming up with a different way. I was talking with a client the other day, and right now her closet is a little bigger. She's got a great place for hooks for robes inside the closet, and in the new closet it's a little smaller. And I suggested, like, is there a place on the bathroom side of the door, because it transitions from the bedroom into the bathroom into the closet. And I'm like, what if we put the hooks on the bathroom side of the door instead of inside the closet? And she just really hadn't thought of that because she's always had a place to hang her robe in the closet. And so it was just kind of throwing out one other new option for her to see things a little differently than she had done before.
Yeah, that's awesome because we are such creatures of habit. And I think that's why remodels are such an interesting one for us because you just think it's going to be the same. When you move to a new house, you know the structure is going to be different. You know you're going to have to rethink what you're going to put and where you're going to put it and all those things. But on a remodel, you don't think of that. So having an outside set of eyes to come in and say, "Oh, how about this? How about
Right.
that?" Or to just set it up, because a lot of times we're not working with a client one-on-one, we're just making it happen. And at the walkthrough at the end, we can say, oh, and this is here because, and this is here because. All the time they're like, oh my gosh, yes, I didn't think of that. Or, oh, yeah, wow. Because that's not what their routine or their
Right.
mind was telling them before. So it's a lot of fun.
Yes, it's great when you get a new. I mean, it's interesting because I get to talk with my clients. Oftentimes, I'll do a project for them, and then they'll call me back a year later, and we'll do another area, something else that they have decided that they want to organize. And the beauty of it is I get to hear the feedback from them. I got to go out yesterday and see a closet of a client that I did a couple years ago, and it was the first time I got to walk through the space, and she was telling me kind of all of her favorite parts, and she's settled in a little bit more, and things have really transitioned well for her in the space. But it took her some time of living in that space to really figure out how many shelves she needed for shoes, and we had a count at the beginning, but once you're in there and you get settled, then you can really figure out what works best.
Right.
So we
Right.
talked about, Keli, like and I'll share one funny story of when we moved to Colorado. We had about a month to pack, about a month of knowing we were going to move to get things boxed up and shipped out. And at the beginning, I was very well organized and had a good idea of what went in what box and what to give away and what to keep. And at the end, like that last week, I was like, there's like 5 random things. And I say random, but I didn't have that word to describe it. I'll share where that word came from. Just like 5 things left in the coat closet. And I'm like, an umbrella, a like the seat cushions you sit on at the sports game. Like it was just some things, right? And they didn't really relate to each other, but they just all got stored in that closet. And my friend Molly was like, just put it in a box and write random on it. And I'm like, I would have never thought of the word random to write on the box, but that was like my saving grace. And it honestly relieved so much stress for me. And the random boxes were hard to deal with at the other end. Don't get me wrong, because I didn't know what they were, and I had to. But I knew that they were lower priority than the things that were marked, and I knew that I could get to them eventually. But it gave me a place and a way to just kind of deal with the things that I didn't know how to deal with. I'm sure you guys have a much better solution for those things.
We do. But at the same time, there's going to be random on any move for anyone. It's just part of it. Like, you could make all these nitty-gritty microscopic categories to get everything categorized and whatever. But at the end of the day, like the umbrella or whatever it is, like it doesn't fit a regular box. What category does it necessarily, So one thing we definitely find is you can tell a difference on a packing job if an organizer packed it,
Okay.
packers packed it, or the client packed it. Huge difference, and it takes a different amount of time to unpack for each of those scenarios.
Right.
And on the packers side, you'll see a lot more random because I think they're optimizing boxes and paper and space. So
Right.
they're trying to be sure that they get as much in as possible, and they're fast. So they're not going to sit there and think through which category where might something land on the other side, right? And then you can see sometimes when the homeowner was packing themselves, this happens quite a bit, very organized, very labeled, very intentional, until they hit the point
Of the random.
where everything becomes random. Because it's hard for us to say, oh, this house is going to take X amount of time to pack, right? But we have enough experience that we can come in and say, okay, based on experience, this house is going to take X number of hours. But what people tend to do is way underestimate, because you just see the things that are out and in the open. You're not thinking about all the coat closet and the top shelf of the coat closet and all the random size things and all those, what's in the garage.
Bathroom sink and yeah.
Yeah. You don't think of those and the time that it takes to source the box, get the right materials, get it packed, all of that. So you can see where it just becomes this throw it all in because the priority changes. In the beginning, it was being organized and moving, peacefully. Later, it becomes just the movers are coming. Just get it in a box. We'll get it to, like you said, get it to the other side. Deal with it when we get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can always tell. And then if an organizer came in, it tends to be pretty even keeled. You might end up with a little bit that says random or something, but they're thinking other side. Oh, on the other side, this is going to go to the child's bedroom, even though I found it in the living room or something. And they might make that switch if time allows. So yeah, it's really interesting to see the difference of the styles.
When we moved to Colorado, like I said, we had about a month, and anything that we could put in a box that could be put on a pallet, the company that my husband worked for at the time shipped for us. So half of our house, not quite half, but some of our stuff came ahead of time, and it went on a pallet and went up in a warehouse. And then when we moved to Colorado, a truck came and unloaded, but we had 4 months of living in temporary housing. So literally my entire life was on a pallet, stacked up, in the rafters of a warehouse. And the one really lucky thing that we did was, I think it was the weekend before we moved in, we brought all the pallets down and we organized the pallets. So I had a kitchen pallet, I had a bedroom pallet, and I marked them number wise. So when they unloaded the pallets into my garage, I knew where the kitchen came in first. We loaded them in the truck a certain way and out, so I could get to the things that were my biggest priority first. So that was a saving grace for me. And eventually I got to all those random boxes. But as unorganized as I am at times, that was one thing that really, really helped me feel like I had a handle on at least the beginning of that move or that unpack, because I knew where things were, which we were lucky. It was hard that it went so slow, but we were lucky in that same regard. Do you prioritize things like how things then get packed? Are you there for the actual move itself?
Depends. We customize out and every client's different.
Okay.
A lot of times if someone does have a transition point, like they're going to be in an apartment, it just multiplies the decision making, because now you're not just deciding what to keep and what to discard. You're deciding what to keep long term, what to keep close by, what, so we can help through that process to be sure that you have what you need for temporary and organize, the things that'll be for later. So it just depends. When it comes to unpacking, like let's say the movers have brought everything, they've put it all in the appropriate rooms, then how do we prioritize? For most clients, it is the kitchen and the primary bed bath. And then if they have children, those spaces next as well. Because everyone knows, like, you need a place to sleep, shower, and eat first and foremost. All the rest of it can typically usually wait. Sometimes clients will have us just come get those spaces.
Okay.
Just depends on budget and timeline. So we can come just do those main spots. They can handle the rest. More times than not, if we just come handle a few spaces, they're like, oh my gosh, can you just add hours and finish the whole thing? Because just make it go away, make it be done, There are unpacking services that some moving companies have.
Okay.
And we're different from those. So typically on one of those unpacking services, what you're really having the movers do is get everything out of the cardboard and take the boxes away.
Okay.
So they have a little standard of, I call it Ohio, only handle it once.
Okay.
Little acronym, but they're just going to touch things one time, get it out of the box onto a flat surface or hung in the closet so that there aren't boxes in the home. And I think people are pretty familiar with those unpacking services.
Right.
I wish there was another name for what we do, because we unpack and organize. We settle the whole thing. So we figure out, oh, what does the flow look like in this space? How do they intend to use it? Color code the closet, get all the, short sleeve together, long sleeve together, not just wardrobe box to rail, wardrobe box to rail. Like, we get it. Do we need product? Maybe they had a built-in closet system in their previous home and they need a new one. Like, hey, Tia,
Right.
help.
Right.
We need this, but we also need a temporary solution until you can
Yes.
get out there and get it done. So
Yeah.
what can we do so that this client is functional and can just keep moving? We do a lot of VIP unpacks for large companies.
Okay.
And so they'll have C-suite people moving to Colorado, and they don't have time. Like, it's in the company's best interest to have us come, take that stress away, be sure everything has a home, and they're done so that they can focus on work. So those are really fun jobs for us to do, because we can do every last detail. A client never has to touch a box, and they feel great at the end.
So let's say it's a 5-bedroom house. So parents, couple kids, a guest room, a home office, maybe a TV room, a kitchen, couple bathrooms. Like, how long does that unpack take your team?
Our goal is to always be 3 days or less.
Okay.
Because people are typically have the mental energy to withstand the transition piece
Okay.
for 3 days. So we try to make our team be the right size.
Okay.
So, 6 to 10 people, just depending on the level of detail and how much stuff is going into this place. Because we've talked about this before. Some people just want all the pants together in the closet.
Yes.
Some people want dress pants and casual pants and color coded, and
Right.
So figuring out those pieces. But we try to change the size of the team more so that we can hopefully do a 3-day start to finish done. We had a client in Grand Junction. They were in their house on Tuesday, normal life, but Tuesday morning, packed up. By that next Monday, they were making coffee and doing everything just like normal in this quick turnaround from packing, transporting, taking everything out, pictures hung, everything put away. Like, they could not believe it. In their 80s. And so, you want to have less transition time for sure in a situation like that, because it's just stress that's really hard for people. So our piece of unpacking on that one was 2 days.
Okay.
And we had 6 or 7 people on site to make it happen. So it was a lot of fun. Long days sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
But a lot of fun.
So before we wrap up, this is kind of a loaded question on my end. But Keli, what happens when you move in to a new house and your stuff doesn't fit? What do you recommend?
First thing is determine how important that stuff is. Like, sometimes it's just not meant to be in your new space, and that's okay. Just because you had it doesn't mean you have to keep it. But sometimes you move in and you're like, wait a minute, I do want all of these things. I think then you just need to look at getting some help if it doesn't make sense to you. And maybe that means you need a structural change and you need to have a closet install or a pantry install to really optimize every last inch of that space.
I think there's 2 parts to that question. I think it's one, get Keli's team out there to help make sure you're most efficiently using the space you have. And then it's called Tia to help with some new built-ins, whatever part of the house that is, whether it's, and I really like when I walk into someone's house, I walk into their closet, for example, my eye is looking for unused space. And I don't mean like an empty shelf, but I mean like if there's a long hang section and they have short items on it, and then there's shoes sitting on the floor underneath, it's like there's, 3 feet, 2 feet at minimum of space that isn't being used. And it's like, let's get in there and like, let's reconfigure that and make the space most efficient. And I know your team will go in and help people really get the right things in the right places to make it flow well. But I just am always excited to help people. I always joke when I walk into someone's closet, I can't move walls, but I can make the space that you have be used in a most efficient manner and really find, nooks and crannies and feet and inches that they didn't have before, and make the space really, really work well.
I love that. And I think right now in Denver, it's such a valuable thing because we looked at buying a new house. We looked at moving. I got to experience some of the emotions that go along with, oh my gosh, are we really going to do this? All the logistics, all the pieces. But we looked at doing all of those things, and it's just a really tough time to make that happen. And so changing your mindset and saying, actually, wait a minute, what can be done in this current space
For sure.
to help this current space meet our needs? Because, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars you're spending to move to this new house that maybe has a bigger closet and an extra space for whatever it might be, right? But is there something that could be done in your current space for a fraction of that amount of money that would save the stress of moving and still have you love and enjoy where you are? So
it's like that show. I'm going to forget the name of it. It's one of those design shows on Love It or List It, that show, where like, am I keeping the space with some updates, or am I dumping the old space and moving it? And, they always pick people who one feels one way and one feels the other. And sometimes when I go into people's houses, one is very, strong and emotional about a project that they need to do, and the other one's a little bit more indifferent. But I know we have this in common, Kelly. We both love helping people solve their problems, right?
Absolutely.
Find a better solution and making life easier when that solution works well.
Absolutely.
Kelly, before we wrap up today, any last words you'd like to say on the subject of moving, and or, like you just brought up, the option to not move when it feels like maybe you do need to move?
I just think it's probably my biggest piece of advice for all of these pieces all of the time, and that is just figure out what the actual goal is. Like, what is it you actually want? And there might be multiple paths to get there, whether that's, are you going to move or stay where you live? Or maybe that's in your closet and you're looking at your current clothing. Like, in making those, what do you actually want? Do you want to be trendy? Like, do you want to, like, what do you want? Then we can make that happen. But I think a lot of times we get stuck in not even actually knowing what we're really after.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that piece, then you just end up doing a lot of extra pieces and work for what?
Yeah.
So
sometimes when I go in, somebody's like, I just want something different. And I'm like, okay, well, I can design whatever it is you want, but I need to know, like, what's your goal in this space? And then I can 100%, or probably 99% of the time, meet that goal, right? I won't say 100% because maybe they want something unique and unusual that can't really be built, but 99% of the time I can solve that. But I often will give people some homework, like get online, look up these options, and then that helps them narrow down what their goals really are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just talking through what's working, what's not working. Okay, from here we can figure out, because sometimes, yeah, if you don't know what you want, that's okay. We can help you figure that out. But that's the first piece, always.
Absolutely. Well, Keli, it's been a pleasure to
Yes.
on with you again today. We'll be back again next month, and between now and then we'll figure out what our topic is going to be. We haven't decided that yet, but
Sounds great.
it's been a pleasure to talk again about design for organization. Keli, have a great month. Everybody watching, have a great month, and we'll see you in what, April?
April.
What month is it today? What, back in April, the first week of April. So,
all right.
guys, have a great month. Bye.
Thanks, Tia.